Columbus Junction. Yeah. CJ. Oh my God. Yeah. Nothing like
down there.
Good people. You are correct. There are some great folks still living there. Absolutely. I think there's been kind of an exodus, but seems to be some good people still living there for sure. Hey, how much time do you have?
I've got, I don't know. I did some lawn work today. I'm up at my folks' place on the lake, so I've got to clean up a bunch of things before I leave today. So I got maybe an hour, 45 minutes, an hour.
Okay. Well, how about this? Yeah, I got to go teach a class. Let's do 30 minutes. I'll try to keep it at 30. Yeah. Okay. 30. Hey, so just to begin, I'm going to be completely frank with you. We are not journalism professors. It's just me today. My buddy Brian he's flying back to Michigan. He's a professor actually at Michigan. Yeah, I know. So I have no journalistic training. So the questioning that you get today is probably not going to be even close to what you've experienced throughout your career. So it's going to be more of a conversation if you're okay with that.
You'd be surprised. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so first off, let's get to the kind of the reason why the Sukup folks asked you to be on the show. Tell us a little bit about kind of what's going on with the game day bill, but also the philanthropic work that you and Sage Rosenfels are doing with Sukup.
Sure. Yeah. Sukup, what a great Iowa company. Almost 500 some employees right out of Sheffield, Iowa, and are supplying great solutions for our farmers across the country. But yeah, I was way back in almost about a year ago. I was contacted by a small little church group out of Charles City, Iowa, to go down to Haiti to supply an orphanage some solar power. Since I do solar kind of on my daily nowadays, I said I'd be absolutely excited to do that. So on our trip down there, they showed me these four. Actually, there were 14 of them, but only 7 showed up. Just 7 were stolen. Seven Sukup homes that they're using for classrooms down there at this orphanage. So I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. Like, Iowa Church Group, Tim Dwight, solar power, and then now we've got this other relationship with this manufacturer out of Iowa, making these great, sustainable, basically indestructible homes for folks down in Haiti to help that population, help that community down there. So the Imagine Missions is the orphanage group that is down there, and they have plans to do an expansion. So on our way back to Iowa, we decided that we wanted to be a big part of that, and for knowing the environment down there, the heat, the hurricanes, the earthquakes, we knew that we needed to supply and design this expansion around the Sukup safety home, because that home can stand 200 miles an hour. It rarely breaks down. You can put it up for 2 hours. I mean, it's perfect for this type of application. So a couple months after that, we got back. We went down in January. We put in solar panels, solar systems for a couple different sites. Came back, had a meeting, I think in maybe late February, early March with Sukup at their headquarters there in Sheffield, and said, "Hey, love to purchase kind of be a part of what you guys are doing here with the safety home. We'd like to show you our project and see if we can't collaborate together and get this thing over the finish line, which is hopefully next May, next June in 2019." And they said, "Great, it'd be awesome, but we also would like you to be involved in something we're working on." And we're down in Haiti a lot. I think they have over 200 plus homes down in Haiti that they supply down there. And we want to do a safety home build at a football game. And since, the majority of, I don't know if it's the majority, but quite a few of their engineers, I think maybe the majority of their engineers, I don't know about the majority of their employees, but Iowa State fans. And I was like, this is perfect.
That's great, yeah.
Iowa State. I mean, working together, Hawkeyes and Cyclones. So I was like, I know a good friend of mine named Sage Rosenfels. And they're like, yeah, we know Sage. Quarterback, Iowa State. We're familiar with him. We kind of know him. We met him a couple of weeks ago. Just about this idea. I was like, well, that's awesome, because him and I know each other since about 2003. and we became good friends over these last 15 years, and I would be honored to be part of it. So going into this, since it was 2018, the game, the rival game is at Kenneck this year. I was like, that's even more perfect because that's my home. That's my home, and unfortunately, the Iowa State folks got to come over and do some building in Kenneck, but I think they're going to overlook that. They're overlooking that, considering what the impacts that we're going to do with this safety home across the world as we see climate change becoming more of an issue and societies and people having to deal with those devastations of those storms and problems that they're having. So that is kind of how the game build became was that we were in Sheffield talking with Sukup, and they were like, hey, we want to do this. And I was like, well, I want to do this, and let's bring this together. And it's really started pushing the safety home, across the country as well as across the world, and show people, what this product can do. So and I was game for it. I mean, I'm pretty excited about it. We've got a lot of other folks that are going to be participating in that. There's a couple of legislators in there. Jeff Settles is going to be participating. I think Joy Woody, the head track and field coach, which isn't on the list yet, but he just texted me yesterday. He's going to be participating. And so we're going to have, Cyclones and Hawkeyes building the Sukup home right there in the south side of Kenneck.
Yeah,
Rachel's going to be pretty awesome.
Rachel sent me the list, and she wanted me to include it. So Dallas Clark will be there. You mentioned Jess, Nas, Mitro Long, Jack. Is it Whitfer? Jack Whitfer. See, these are clones that I don't necessarily remember. Jeff Horner, Greg Bruner, Adam Haluska, Lane Danielson. There were a couple that may or may not be there, but it sounds like, alumni from both schools really getting engaged with that. That's got to be a great feeling.
Absolutely. We're all Iowans. We all care about folks, people, and want to see if we can, since things are pretty good in Iowa. Well, I wouldn't say really good right now since our corn industry our farming industry is taking a beating, but we try to look out for each other, and we're reaching out to the world, and getting prominent folks like the names you just said around an event like this was super important, and it also shows how these people care and what they're trying to do and how they want to help support any way they can to make the world a better place. And we're pretty excited. We started off a stage in the eye, and then a couple other folks jumped on, and it was Jack, then it was Jeff and Bruner and these guys. So it's a good group. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm hoping some of these folks know how to use a wrench or anything. It's not all that difficult to put these homes together. Safety nuts and bolts and sliding pieces together that you have instructions for. So it should go pretty quick. It should be a lot of fun, and we're hoping a lot of people show up on September 8th. I think we're gonna probably get started maybe 10 in the morning. The game that starts at 4 o'clock. So we should have everything built probably by 1, I would think, considering, there's obviously a learning curve when you're first putting something together the first time. It's going to be pretty fun. It's going to be exciting. And I'm just wondering who's going to bring the beer.
There's none of that around Kenneck. It'd be really hard to find around there.
Well, it's always nice to do some hard work and sit down with friends and have a beer or a drink or water or something like that, and enjoy each other and look back and see what you did. We're gonna show up at Kenneck Stadium, around 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, and a couple hours later we're gonna have a home built.
If you're starting at 8 or 9, that means people have been drinking for 3 or 4 hours. So just be prepared for that.
Oh yeah, well, I'm totally prepared, and I think most of the Iowa Staters coming in are kind of prepared for that. But yeah, that's my hometown, Iowa City. So been around that environment a long time, played in front of that environment. And so I think the expectations are definitely there for folks. And we're going to have a great time building this thing and showing people, this technology, and showing folks what we're doing in the world and how we're trying to help people, rise up and build their country.
How often, I guess, how many times have you been down to Haiti? And then when you get there, are you actively involved in the building and meeting everybody around the kind of community and stuff like that?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a pretty hands-on guy. So, when we first went down there, none of the church group knew anything about solar power. So I was like, hey, you're not going to be able to build it. So I'm taking a run down there to see what's going on, because obviously known about the earthquake and hurricane that hit last year. And then, just over the years of, you hear news pieces about how bad Haiti is and how just a wreck their economy is, the government's not helping at all. I jumped down there. We went down, the first trip was in January of this year. We were down there for about 7 days. Went with an amazing group, got a lot of stuff done. We put roofs on a church, we built 3 solar projects, we built gardens, we built all these classrooms, we painted all these buildings. I mean, it's amazing the amount of things that we did in the 7 days that we were there. It was just pretty exciting to be part of a group like that. And then I went back down a couple weeks later because I had a missing solar piece that we needed to kind of interconnect the system to the grid on a monitoring level, as well as, communications level. So I went back down there for a couple of days. It was kind of a quick trip. And then I just got back 2 weeks ago from another trip from a friend of mine that played at Oregon State. He's Haitian and his grandmother lives down there. And he's got a small school that he supports down there, about 60 kids. So we went down there with a bunch of supplies, as well as we powered his grandmother's house with solar and batteries. I mean, this woman's 84 years old. She's never had consistent power her whole life. And when you think about that, and then you actually go down and experience it, where there were a couple of days down there where the electrical grid wasn't up for only 30 minutes out of the day, and that was at 2:30 in the morning,
Wow.
to 3 o'clock at night. And so, who's operating businesses at those times, let alone who knows when the energy's going to come on. So very challenging times down there for that country. But they got a lot of good things to look up to. I mean, solar power is becoming way cheaper. And that's one thing we're going to try to build their economy around as well. Energy is a huge thing for any country, any industrialized country, or any country that actually needs power. So, yeah, I've been down a couple of times. I'm going to go back down there maybe next month, and then in December, and then the following next spring, to start building these safety homes on this transitional school that we're doing at the orphanage. Haiti, when you're 18 years old, you have to leave, and you're in an orphanage, you have to leave the orphanage by law. So you're basically thrown out into the street. And when you've been in the street in Haiti, there's nothing really, to really hold on to. I mean, those people every day are fighting trying to power themselves and the basic needs that we have every day. I mean, I get up this morning and walk about 10 feet to my sink to wash my face. And it takes them, a couple blocks to walk down the street and pump water out of these wells that they have to use for water. So it's pretty dire straits, but we're going to change a lot of that. And that's kind of our focus here over the next couple decades, to make that place a better place for people. So I've been there quite a bit, and I'm looking forward to going down there a lot more.
Knowing that, you've been involved in renewable energies now for almost a decade, if not more. What can you tell me what compelled you to, I suppose, get not just interested in the renewable clean energy industry, that kind of space, but also just the philanthropic work? Was there a moment in your life that compelled you to do that, or was it just you knew you always wanted to be a part of a positive force?
I've had a pretty good life. Sam. I mean, I've had incredible experiences through athletics. I've had a great community to grow up in Iowa City, always supported by many, many people. And, when you have the chance to pass that on, you should do it. And that's kind of what I was growing up around, is always trying to help the less fortunate. I'm trying to be a team player all the time, trying to get everybody involved, trying to be positive. And so when football got done, and, I was doing a lot of stuff, not as an extent, but when football got done, I was like, hey, I want to do this solar stuff, but I also have a lot more time for myself now to go out in the world and see where I can make more impact. And, solar is one thing that can help with that, because everybody needs energy. Sun shines everywhere, and it's pretty simple to install and get in. So, those are some conduits that I've really focused on in my life now that can make big impacts and big differences in people's lives, giving them light, every day. Saving them money, and just making their lives a better place. You know, it's one thing to kind of go down there and give people food and a couple of things here and there and hug them and be supportive and stuff. But it's another thing when, you know, my buddy's 84-year-old grandmother can just go up to the light switch and turn it on, and she's got light 24 hours a day now. And she can do the things that she wants to do. And then that, you know, hopefully starts to resonate and evolve and develop to the rest of those types of situations where you're better in people's lives. And I think it's important, you know, when people have gotten, you know, a great platform or have great experiences on success, is to go back and try to help other people have success. You know, you look at, we're specific kind of talking about Haiti, but, you know, Haiti's not very far from Jamaica. And the last time I knew, Jamaica had the fastest man ever in the world.
Yeah, I heard
so
that.
I'm thinking, well, why can't there be a Haitian down there somewhere? We can create a track, we can create an opportunity, we can create some positive on showing what they can do with just some running shoes, changes things. You know, gives them hope, gives them motivation, gives them something to strive for, gives them positive reinforcement. I mean, it's hard when you got to go down there to really experience it. I mean, when you got people living off under $2 a day, which is under $800 a year, it's pretty, you know, it sets you back on the appreciation of what you've had your whole life. And then it also motivates you to make a difference in those people's lives. And they appreciate it, you know? I mean, they really do. And it's great to see their smiles. It's great to see their happiness. And there's going to be more of that as we keep moving with the direction we take it. So, you know, I just, you know, being from Iowa City and having the experience I had in my life, and it always makes you feel good to give back. Makes you feel good when you can help somebody else out and make their lives better. And especially in a situation like that in Haiti, I mean, it's 100 times full.
You're obviously doing a lot of things that are much, much larger than sports, but you brought something up there that I wanted to briefly return to, because, you know, on this show, Brian and I, we like to talk about not, you know, the mainstream sports stuff or the stream of consciousness conversation about sports, but really the larger social, cultural impacts of sport and how they kind of frame our understanding of who we are as people. But what you had pointed out is just the positive value that can be taken from sport, especially in those countries like Haiti, not necessarily Jamaica, because obviously different, way, way different point in their progress than Jamaica. But even, you know, we were watching the World Cup, and you see so many of those countries that really rally around sport. It gives people an identity. It gives somebody something to root for. And I think you and I come from a place in this country where that is so much a part of who we are as kids, especially as Iowa Hawkeye fans, that maybe this resonates more with us than it does other folks around the world. I'm not sure what you've kind of experienced with how folks discuss that kind of thing. And you and Sage in particular, being former athletes, professional athletes, whether they're viewing you as somebody's invested in this emotionally, or is that, do you ever get any criticism about it, or skepticism, cynicism maybe? And you can just say no. That's fine. I really don't listen to it. Okay, that's great.
But no, not really. I mean, you know, the things that we're doing are pretty, pretty monumental. And it's not because I'm trying to like say it. It's just like when you go down there and you do that, you know what you're doing. You know what you're changing. You can see the difference. And you know, once you set that difference in a kid's life, I mean, it's going to just keep going that way, right? So, no, not a lot. I mean, I see a lot of people that are shocked and amazed on the conditions down there and the stories I have to tell about the people and, you know, what's happened to them, what's happening to them. And it kind of motivates them too. I mean, on this trip, the latest trip we just went on, I was down there with 3 friends of mine, and then they had a couple relationships with theirs, a couple girlfriends. That one was a teacher, another one's a real estate agent, and they're all from Portland. You know, a couple of them played at Oregon. Well, actually, all 3 guys played at Oregon State. One's a really older buddy of mine. The other 2 are kind of younger guys I've just met over the last couple of years. They played in the early 2000s, and they had some friends of theirs. And, you know, on the way back, on the Friday morning that we were turning on the lights in Grandma's house and being able to pack our clothes and get ready to fly out at 8 o'clock in the morning, She's like, TD, when are we coming back? When are we coming back to do more, TD? I was like, we're coming back in a couple months. You gonna make the trip? You gonna step up? She said, I'm stepping up. So now, over the last couple of days, and we got back to the States, she kept pounding me with text messages like, hey, what's our plan? When are we going? Who can I invite? You know, and it gets kind of contagious when you're able to start helping people, you know, that magnitude. And I mean, helping anybody, you know, even open somebody's door or picking something up for somebody. It's just nice to do little things for folks to make their lives a little bit better. Because, you know, I've had a pretty good run, and I want to keep that attitude up of appreciating that and pushing it forward. So, yeah, it's been a great experience, not just seeing what we're doing down there, but also what you're seeing when you get out of the people that do it. You know, sitting back and watching her hang out with the kids in the orphanage. We didn't go over the orphanage all that much on this last trip because we spent a lot of time at the school and then at Ed's grandmother's house as well. We were only down there for about 3 days, so we didn't really have a whole lot of time to do much. But we stopped at the orphanage for a couple of hours, showed them around everything we've done and what we did, and just seeing my friends with these kids and with some of the teachers down there was so gratifying, and also to see them really, you know, the light bulb goes off. Whoa, you know, I can help down here and make a big impact. I want to keep doing this. So it's been neat to see on all kinds of different levels of the emotions that run through you when you do when you do things like this.
Man, that's great to hear. That's awesome. Again, folks who are listening or watching, you can follow all this stuff that Sukup is doing. It's just hashtag game day build, and then safe T, the letter T, home.com. That's additional information. And so we have what, 2.5 weeks out, Tim, that everybody will be doing the build there, Kinnick. Where around Kinnick? We got a lot of listeners in Iowa City. Do you know where it's going to be stationed?
Yeah, it's going to be in the Krause Plaza on the south side of the stadium. So just on Melrose, just outside the stadium. So where Kinnick's bus is at. So pretty easy to kind of find us. I mean, it's kind of really the only major ways to get into I wouldn't try to get into the stadium, but get to the stadium is off Melrose there. So, yeah, folks want to show up. I think we'll be kicking off around 10 o'clock, and it's going to be fun. I mean, folks can learn about how these things are built, what they can withstand, and the technology in them. I mean, they got this really cool heat shield on them because obviously in Haiti it's really hot. So we were going to bed, dude, at like 8 at night, 10 o'clock at night. Actually a couple of nights we were up pretty late. Actually, we were up late every night because we got home late. So, you know, you're laying down in bed at 85 degrees. Man, that's trying to get some sleep, you know, being attacked by mosquitoes and all these things. And it's pretty hot down there. So the technology they have is a heat shield that goes on top of the safety home, and it lowers the temperatures inside those things by almost 20 degrees. So if you're thinking it's 90-some degrees out, 95 degrees out, and I can hop into a safety home and it's 75 degrees out, makes a big difference.
That's a big shift.
At nighttime, when it drops down to 85, those folks are sleeping in the high 60s to low 70s. So it makes things comfortable, for the user of that home.
I'm really looking.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be.
Yeah, that's great. I was just thinking I think that'll be a great experience. I just think for folks who attend the game, because I hear you talk about this and the passion that you bring to it. And, you know, we've talked to Sage before, and it's the same thing. And so bringing that kind of perspective and that experience and obviously the credibility that you two have and then everybody else that's attending to Kinnick, to Iowa City, that's just going to be fantastic. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how everything plays out. I got another question.
Well, we got a lot of participants, and obviously it's Iowa State, big game. Both teams are probably 1-0. Had a tight one last year in games. So I'm sure Iowa State's looking forward to the upset. I don't think it's going to happen, but they can cheer hard there in Kinnick, and we can build a great safety home.
That's awesome. Hey, I know you are clearly very educated about the things that you do. And I just wanted to ask you, because, you know, of what we do on this show, are you worried at all about some of these policy rollbacks that are going to happen in relation to, you know, clean energy, climate change, this kind of stuff, or is the momentum pushing forward so strongly across the globe that we need not worry?
Yeah, well, the only thing with these policy measures, that the United States is going to fall behind. That's the only problem.
Okay.
I mean, folks nowadays need to understand that renewable energy is here to stay. The costs have dropped significantly because it's actually a market now. I mean, everybody that was born in 1970s or below can remember the growth of the cell phone, the growth of the computer, and how those things used to be super expensive, not very efficient. And now you look 30 years later and, we're all talking to computers from our phones, we're banking, we're Facebooking, we're FaceTiming, we're doing all these things on one device, which obviously, is incredible. And seeing that development of the computer chip and what it's really done for our lifestyles and in the world and society and humanity. And solar and wind and batteries are going to do the exact same thing. I mean, the momentum is there. The world is all going solar and wind. There's not a lot of coal plants being built. So this administration that's up there now, they're still trying to hang on. They're still trying to hang on to, a technology that's outdated, that's inefficient, that's really expensive, but people really don't understand these things because nobody knows anything about energy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Sam, what do you pay for a kilowatt hour? What's the cost of a kilowatt hour?
You're asking the wrong guy. I don't even know.
See, what do you mean? You don't buy energy every day? You don't pay your electric bill? You're not the wrong guy. You're the right guy.
Yeah.
And you're a perfect example about every time I ask somebody that question, they have no idea what I'm talking about. So if you have no idea what the basis of how we buy and sell energy, how can you sit down and talk with me about energy generation, solar, wind, natural gas, nuclear, coal? You can't understand the basic cost of how we buy and sell energy, then it's a pretty tough conversation to have when the knowledge base is not there. And it's nothing against you. It's just that energy has been so abundant, and especially our lifestyle. You go back to the 1930s and 1940s, you ask people how energy was, and they'll probably tell you it was almost like 80. It was on and off, dangerous, didn't know anything about it. Well, then you get, the industrialization happens in the 1950s and 60s and 70s, which we had incredible growth in the 60s, 10% energy did in this country in the 60s and 70s and the late 50s, and how we industrialized and built colleges and factories and businesses and buildings and homes and all these things that we're so accustomed to that we really don't think about because it's already there. I have to have it. I turn a light on, it works. We don't know all the intricacies of how energy is mined, how it's shipped, how it's bought, what the pollution is. I mean, all these things come to these factors. So, but it's getting better. It's just like taking somebody, back in the 1980s, a normal person, and talk about RAM and megabytes and gigabytes and all these other probably, terminologies I'm missing that we knew nothing about. But as the technology like computers and cell phones became more and more abundant and more used, people started to understand these things. And that's kind of what's happening in the energy industries, is that people are starting to now say, all right, I'm going to learn about solar. I'm going to learn about wind. I want to see what my options are. I want to learn about the electric car. I want to learn about a battery. And then that's when you start telling people, well, what's your voltage? Like, how many voltages do we have in the industry, Sam? Do you know that? You know what your voltage is into your house?
I was not good at physics, buddy. That was not my jam.
So every house is 240 volts. You've got 120 volts to come out of your output, right? So your house is broken up into two circuits. 120 volts and 120 volts equals 240 volts. So that's what comes into your house, and then it's split up because voltage is how we push energy, and the amount of energy is the amperage. So we've got to go back and actually learn some of the basics of energy before we can even start talking about what he's talking about on a high level that know nothing about. Like, I don't go on to a hog confine or a razor and talk about his industry because I know nothing about it. And I like to learn about it. And I've learned a lot about it lately in Iowa. We do a lot of solar for a lot of our farmers out there. It's pretty cool how the Iowa farmer is kind of leading the way in solar power.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we've got a lot of farmers in Iowa going solar.
Wow.
Because it's a great investment, and we're looking under 5-year paybacks on these guys. They're saving a ton of money, for Iowa towns with solar here in the future. Sage and I, years and years ago, because he started investing in this company that I invested into, you had this big at my house in California, just outside my garage. I had this small little room, and that was my office. And on one of the walls, I had this big map of Iowa. And I had solar panels, hopefully we could manufacture some, but because we have, Minnesota is closed and the Midwest is right in the middle of everything. So it's easy to ship things in and out of our city. And it's so centrally located that, shipping costs do obviously come into account when you're shipping product across the country, and that's one reason why not just we can grow a lot of corn and soybeans and things, but we can get our products out, because we're so central. I had this map, and I was like, all right, we're going to hopefully build a solar manufacturing plant. But there's going to be solar states all over the state of Iowa because Iowa is 16th in the country in sun irradiation. So we have the 16th most sun in the country. We have a lot of land, and we have got good transmission. So those are some of the things, because our wind industry has done that, because we ship all of our wind out. And that's what helps keep our energy rates low, is because we sell that wind at a higher price to other markets that need to either buy the renewable energy or they have more expensive costs than they would buying from the wind. So Paige and I sat there and we wrote out this big Iowa plan for solar, and it's starting to show up, starting to become true. And it's exciting. I mean, because the sun shines everywhere. The technology is, the first solar cell was built in the 1830s, man. 1830s. Mm-hmm. The first solar module was built in 1950 because we started going off the planet. You can't run an extension cord all the way up to space, let alone there's no oxygen in space, so combustion engines don't work. So the first satellites have solar cells on them. And so that technology works in space, so you figure it's going to work on the planet, which it does easily. And it's getting cheaper and cheaper, like computers, because solar panels are semiconductors. And if you look at computers are semiconductors. So it kind of follows the same Moore's law of once you scale technologies like that, you get huge amounts of price drops. And that's what we're seeing now in solar. And that, as well as wind, is that it's a global economy now in this industry. It's global. Everybody's moving it. So there's more solar panels to be sold, there's more sand to buy, there's more glass to buy, there's more aluminum to buy, which are very, very low cost commodities. So when you buy these things at bigger and bigger amounts, the prices go down and down and down. And so that's what we're finally seeing, in renewables, is that it's meeting a scale of adoption, and the prices are just keep going down and down. Now, obviously, we've got tariffs with this administration, but the part of that problem is that we're behind. You go over to China and they've got all kinds of manufacturing plants with solar panels, solar modules. In America, we've got like 3. So if I've got, I think at one time China had 1,500 solar manufacturers. Now they've got about 15, because obviously in any industry, if you look at the chip industry back in the 80s, I'm sure there were a ton of guys coming out trying to make chips. Well, who are the chip makers nowadays? There's only like 3 of them in the whole world.
Yeah.
So we're kind of seeing the same type of thing. Look at refrigerators. How many refrigerators are in the world? There's about 1,500 different refrigerators. There's about 10 different types of refrigerator manufacturers you can choose from. So we're starting to see consolidation in this industry, which is good because it gives those companies more footing and sure ground, as well as less competitors, but it gives them more opportunity to sell more of the product. So we're hitting solar at a really, really good time, not just for the environment, but also for cost and for Iowa. Because back in the day, solar panels, they're not selling thousands and thousands of them. So we're starting to see the costs really come down. They're becoming a lot more efficient. And it's like any industry, the more money that's in the industry, the more money it brings in the industry, the more innovation happens, the smarter kids come in. That's what I was telling you earlier, is that our future is in our colleges and our high schools, and everything, right? These are kids that are going to be running the world over the next 10, 15, 20 years. And that's where we need to be investing, and that's where we need to be focused on. on all accounts, on all industries, is our kids. So it's been pretty exciting to watch, the industry in Iowa really take off, and we have a big tax credit that helps out with the cost. And everybody talks about tax credits, but nobody knows or realizes that all these other energy companies, they get tax credits too. So it's not like it's an uneven playing field. I mean, it still kind of is uneven on our account because, the monopolized markets and, by law, when you build a house or build a building, you have to connect to that utility that's in that territory. You have no other option. I mean, imagine going to Hy-Vee and looking at all the cereals and only had, how expensive is Trix going to be if they're all Trix? Well, the expensive it wants to be because that's the only option you got.
Yeah.
Well, nowadays, solar is starting to become attractive as well as financeable, bankable, and usable that it's starting to become a competitor now. And there's so many good things. I mean, we are revamping the backbone of our economy, which is energy, and it's a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal when we went from a landline telephone to the cell phone. Mm-hmm. I can remember when I was 10 years old, 1985, when I saw those big bag phones. And those were thousands and thousands of dollars, and all you could do was call somebody. Now you can buy a couple $100 phone, or if you buy an iPhone, it's $500 or whatever. You can do all these other things because the industry exploded. They stopped the monopolies in the late 70s. They broke up the baby bells, and they said, all right, we're going to have a free market. And if that would happen in energy, this energy revolution would explode, and you see all these new developments. You see a ton of money rushing in, even more so now. Lots of jobs to create in this industry. I mean, when you rebuild kind of like a backbone of, the U.S. economy of energy, I mean, it's a big job. And we're talking about rebuilding, transmission lines, to distribution lines, to putting all these solar modules in, to revamping everything. More communication, more data gathering. I mean, that's the one thing in the industry is that it's so archaic that they don't really gather a whole lot of data on what's going on within our grid structure. And everything's looked at a 30,000-foot view. And so there's there's so many inefficiencies in this industry. When I first got into energy, I'm like, you mean the combustion engine is only 25% efficient? That means 75% of the gasoline that I'm buying is wasted in my environment? That's a problem.
Yeah.
You're telling me the coal plant's only 30% efficient and the electrical grid's 50% efficient? So 80% of my coal that I'm actually buying is wasted in my environment? I mean, so when we start to understand these metrics, it really starts to make sense on where we're really starting to go now and how we need to change, a lot of this industry and to be more efficient. But the problem is the utilities don't make money being efficient because they sell kilowatt hours.
Yeah.
So I sold you 10 apples. You only need 3 apples. And I just bought this apple maker that makes 10 apples. Well, now I'm only selling you 3 apples tomorrow. I've got a problem. And that's kind of the problem we're running into. And that's kind of the big problem is that we need to put a lot more money into our grid structure and revamp and modernize that, as well as we need to figure out a way how the utilities that have been there from the beginning either help them make this transition so they don't go out of business, or, some of them are going to go out of business and they're going to get eaten up by other utilities. And that's kind of what's going to be happening here over the next 15 to 20 years in the energy industry. There's going to be a lot of changeover, a lot of different dynamics moving into this place where it's going to create some heartache for some people and for other people and things. But it needs to happen. It needs to happen over the last 30 years. But we get back to the Sam, what do you pay for your kilowatt hour, right?
Yeah.
So on a mass scale, it's hard for people to kind of see these things because they're not in it every day. They don't understand all these challenges, these inefficiencies, the way the grid's built, and all these things that provide power to your light bulb or your computer. People don't really know anything about.
Yeah.
People with high transmission lines on, they look at me crazy. I'm like, those are the things you drive by on the highway.
Yeah.
You know what a substation is? Well, those are the things that look like those erector sets that are fenced in where the power lines go into. That's called a substation. Oh, okay. So it's like, this educational process that's happening. It just needs to happen a little faster. People need to get more involved in it because investing in solar, I mean, we've got in certain markets in Iowa, we've got people that are investing in solar that are making 20 to 30% on their money. You tell me in the economy, and I looked at ever before this third quarter, the last quarter, I made 3% on my money over this last 8 months.
Yeah.
We're talking about how the economy is so great right now. I'm making 3%. When I looked at my 401k in the NFL, I made 3% over the first 2 quarters. And I can invest in solar and make 20%, 10%, 25%. And that's the investment today in solar. It's not just to feel good that I'm going solar and I'm, making my air cleaner and water cleaner and I'm modernizing the grid and I'm securing the grid. It's actually I'm making money on it. I'm making a better return on my money than I am in a lot of investments that I'm doing. Traditional investments like stocks or bonds. And that's where, that's something you can kind of control. The sun's going to come up every day. These systems work every day. And it's a great investment. So, there's a lot of great factors that are starting to really come together in this kind of revolution and modernization of our energy paradigm. And it's great to see because I've been so educated over the last 8 to 10 years. I mean, I do policy at the state level, so I got to know what I'm talking about when we write these policies. And we battle the utilities against net metering and the value of solar and what it does to the grid, because we're seeing these other markets across the country and across the world are a lot further along than us. And we're starting to see the impacts on what solar and renewables do to the grid, and it's so positive. And so we've got to educate people on that, as well as tell these other people that, hey, this is the way this is real data, this is real stuff that's happening.
Well, it's pretty clear that you've studied up and you know exactly what you're talking about. It's very impressive, and I think what you're doing as somebody with your popularity to kind of spread this is extremely important, because that, to me, that's really the only way that we can begin to counter these less, I don't want to say progressive in the political sense, but surely, less forward-thinking approaches to energy, because, the same stuff is happening out here in Colorado. We're fortunate to have a good amount of wind and solar energy just because of where we are positioned, but you get outside of Denver, yeah, for sure. But you get outside of Denver and, there's a lot of pushback. There's certainly a lot of pushback. So,
you've got a lot of those utilities. You got to understand, it's interesting, I'm a big data person. I like facts. That's the one thing about, I think, when people hear me talk, is they know I'm not really bullshitting them. I'm telling the truth. It's been a long time in my career where I did things right all the time, and I tried to do things right all the time and had success and never really, had any issues with things I said. But, problem is, a lot of this industry, about 65% of the industry is about to retire over the next 4 or 5 years. So none of them want a lot of change. And when you get out of Denver, you run into a lot of rural electric cooperatives, which, back in the day, the rural electric cooperatives used to have generation. Back in the 1930s, the United States government, because these private institutions would not run electrical wires out because it was too expensive, because there wasn't enough of them to sell, they decided, you know what, we're going to come in and we're going to build these rural electric cooperatives. And they got a lot of money, and they built power plants. Well, a power plant only lasts about 40, 50 years. And the rural electric cooperative it's a membership type deal, right? So they're not really there to make money off themselves. They're a member of a power company that's selling power to themselves. Okay, so they're really not private investor-owned utilities where they're trying to make billions of dollars. So by the time that asset, that coal plant or that hydro plant went out of date, well, they didn't have a lot of money to build these really expensive power plants anymore. So they basically had to team up with the investor-owned utilities and get cozy with them, because those are the guys that provide them power. So like a lot of our RECs in Iowa, they have to buy the power from these bigger players. They don't have generation anymore. Well, what we're trying to do in Iowa is we're trying to bring them back generation with wind and with solar. And it gets them back away from having to have one supplier. Sometimes these communities lock into 25 to 50-year contracts with these companies. Yeah. Because a coal plant has a 50-year lifespan to it. So if I'm going to build that, well, then I want a customer that's got 50 years on it, right? And these are some of the problems with our rural electric cooperatives, is that some of them want to break away. They want to go solar, but they're stuck under these contracts. They're stuck under this, this overseen utility board that kind of doesn't really tell them what to do because the RECs can kind of do what they want to do. But when they don't have power and they have a power supplier, they're going to do everything they can to be with that power supplier. Because like we have this trade association group called Iowa Solar Energy Trade Association. I'm the president of it. One of our board members is a guy that runs a small 600-member utility in the state of Iowa, in Kelowna, Iowa. And he's got the most solar per capita in the country. He has the second community solar garden. He's got a huge 900 kW system. He's got a megawatt system, and those are 5-acre systems. First power purchase agreement in the state of Iowa. I mean, this is a forward-thinking guy because he understands that this is where the industry is going, as well as the benefits of that small 600-member community making their own power instead of having to buy it from outside.
Yeah.
So that's what we're kind of trying to do. So when you get into Colorado and you get outside of Denver, which is Xcel Energy, you start to run into the rural electric cooperatives. And what they've done is they've set up a system called self-meter.
Mm-hmm.
So during the sunny times, you're pushing energy out to the grid, and they're buying that back at wholesale rate. Where if you have a net metering agreement, you set up a system where you offset either 100% or, like in Alliance territory right now, we can only offset 75% by law. Even though that energy goes out to the grid, they're buying it at the retail rate. And then they're turning around and just selling to the next door neighbor, right along there. So it doesn't really cost them a whole lot of money. It actually saves them money in transmission, efficiencies. I mean, all these things that, cost when you send power from, a generation plant miles and miles away all the way into the grid compared to right off someone's rooftop right next to somebody next door.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can imagine the cost efficiencies in that. So a lot of the RECs have gone to self-metering, which means when you build a power plant or build a solar plant for somebody in those territories, you have to build the size of what the house or the building needs at that time. So say your house pulls 1,000 watts. Well, I can only build 1,000-watt solar system, which is like 4 panels right now, right? Well, that 1,000 watts is only going to offset 1,300 kilowatt hours, or in Denver, if you're in Colorado, you do more like 1,500 to 1,600 kilowatt hours per kilowatt. You're only going to offset 1,600 kilowatt hours, but meanwhile, you're buying 15,000 kilowatt hours from the utility. So your offset's only like 10%. So it's like, well, what's the point? Why even do the project? So the RECs have kind of wiggled themselves into writing their own interconnection agreements where if you're feeding out to the grid, they buy that at the wholesale cost at 2 or 3 cents, and they turn around next door and they sell to your neighbor for 13 cents. And it's really not fair because the grid energy within that site, that grid, and when you produce it, and how you ship it, how you get it there, and how efficient it is, it's way worth more than 2.5 cents. I mean, and we're starting to see that. It's called the value of solar tariff, where you start to add up all these values that solar does to the grid. Security, reliability, it's renewable, it's low cost, it's O&M's low cost. I mean, I've got, I don't know how many systems in the field now over the last, 5 or 6 years. And I talk to my customers. I'm like, so what have you guys done? Have you cleaned your solar panels yet at all? And I'm like, nope. Was it still producing the same as it? Yep, still producing the same as it did last year. Wow. So you've done no maintenance at all. Like, I know your hog confinement, you got to get in there every day and you got to check pumps and make sure everything's up and running and the hogs are okay. But your solar system, you haven't touched it all. Nope, haven't touched it.
Wow.
And so that's a cost that the ratepayer won't have to pay.
Yeah.
Solar systems are very low maintenance. You got to look at all these values that come into play when we're starting to talk about that. And obviously the utilities don't want to recognize that because, they don't want to buy energy at, their 11 cents and 12 cents or whatever it is. They want to buy it as cheap as they can and sell as high as they can.
Well, the name of our show is.
That's why you see a lot of that's why you see, like in Iowa, we used to have a lot of solar going on in the RECs, and then they changed the self-metering, and now that whole market is pretty much stopped unless you have batteries.
Okay.
And you can store that energy, which is there, and that's kind of the holy grail of renewables is storing that energy. But we're going to need energy going into the grid. I mean, we don't want everybody buying the solar system and a battery defective. We need power pumped into the grid, especially during the daytime, because those are our peak times. Those are our most expensive times, most dirtiest times to make energy is during the day. And that's when the sun is shining. And that's when it's making the most low-cost energy. So, it's an incredible asset that we're just starting to peel, the top of the banana off or the top of the iceberg because we're just getting into this. And we're starting to see the huge benefits, not just on job creation and, and renewables as in clean power, but all the things grid are very, very important and very impactful.
Well, the name of our show is Sports Nerds, and I think we earned it today. I think we got it.
Yeah, well, I've got to talk a lot because I got to get this information out to people so they can start connecting the dots.
Hey, I'm impressed. That's great.
I mean, you got to understand all these things. I mean, I tell you, the guy that's one of our board members has been a huge asset. He's a utility guy, and he basically, when I first got in this industry, it was like, what was the movie? The Wizard of Oz. Remember at the end of the Wizard of Oz where Dorothy stands in front of that huge wizard guy?
Yep.
Huge monster wizard guy, and he's got all this stuff going and pumping, and the smoke's coming out, and he's yelling. Well, then she goes, and then Toto or whatever goes around the corner and pulls back the curtain.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that little guy back there with all the little levers and things. Well, that's kind of what's happening in the utility industry. You see like these big, huge industry, but it's really only ran by, people, as well as, a lot of the known things or unknown things or a lot of things in energy aren't known yet. So it's starting to pull back the curtain to educate people and to get people more known about what's happening in energy, what energy is, what solar is, what natural gas is, how it's made, nuclear, all these things. And when I say the customers, I usually talk to them about a lot of these things and try to educate them beyond what their investment is. Like, you're actually securing the grid. You're actually becoming part of national security when you put a solar system in. Because like right now today, if I was going to attack the United States, I'd attack the electrical grid. Because our electrical grid's so outdated, you only have to hit about 10 spots in the whole grid to shut the whole country down. Because our grid, the way it's designed and the way it's put together and how old it is and archaic it is, it'd be very easy to do that. Now, obviously, you got to get past some fighters, and rockets and missiles and all that stuff. But if you really wanted to take down the United States, you hit the electrical grid and people wouldn't have power for months. And then we're being attacked and you can't charge your cell phone. But if you have solar power, now you got power within the grid.
Yeah.
If you just shut down, say, Iowa City. If I want to shut down power Iowa City, I'd probably hit 2 or 3 substations and the whole power of Iowa City would be gone. Except for the people who had solar on their house. If they had a battery and if they had a smart inverter, which then could switch over when the grid goes down, it could switch over and produce its own power. Because there's certain things by law that we have to abide by. Like if the grid goes down, these inverters have to shut off. Well, some other countries that are ahead of us, like Germany, they have inverters that are smart inverters that feel that, and then they'll actually kick back on to a different circuit, and they'll power a couple outlets, maybe your refrigerator, like critical loads.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll set these systems up where they power these loads. So that's energy security. That's national security. So if Iowa City had a ton of solar panels all over all the rooftops of all our homes and businesses, I wouldn't have to hit 3 substations. I'd have to hit a lot of those homes. Well, by that time, half the population on the city's gone, then, they pretty much were, taken over. But it gives us more security on our grid. And it makes it a lot more efficient. So, yeah, I mean, I try to explain a lot of these extra benefits that people do when they put solar in. And it's true.
You're nailing it, man. Hey, I got to be respectful of your time, but I do have one. I got one question for you before you leave, because I just want to know, you more so than really anybody else would be extremely knowledgeable about this answer. What is it about the University of Iowa City, that makes coaches like Hayden and Kirk want to stay? I mean, you played there. You're still very connected. I mean, we're unlike any other institution, you could argue, in the country. What is it that people are so, even former players, I mean, you see guys committed, basketball players, football players, to that city, to that university. In your own words, what is it that makes that continues that connection for people?
I think it all starts with hiring the right person. I think our administration, our community does such a great job of filtering through these applicants that want to coach and be at the university or play at the university. I think we do a phenomenal job of finding character, of understanding hard work, of understanding a stand-up person. A person that wants to do right, that wants to do good. And those are things you saw at Hayden Fry. Those are things you saw in Dan Gable, Tom Davis. You've seen those things in, obviously, Ferentz. So, hiring the right person to get on the bus is stage one. and then two, the support that we have at the U of our fan base. I live in California, and I got people
Yeah.
I mean, name me a college that's had 2 football coaches in the last 40 years. It's unheard of.
I know.
And ethics coach,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and there's obviously some people on staff that have been around that organization for a long time that have maybe an opportunity. But yeah, we support our athletics, whether it's women's volleyball, the swimming, obviously the football. We have an incredible stadium. We play in the Big Ten, which is another, I think, huge. And we're pretty dynamic in Iowa City. I mean, university is not just known for creative.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have a law school. We've got a pharmacy school. We've got engineering school. Maybe not as big as Iowa State, but we have an engineering school. We have a hospital, one of the second biggest research hospitals in the world. One of the greatest children's hospitals in the world, probably the greatest children's hospital in the world. There's some other good ones too. Boston's got a really good one. But yeah, I mean, we try to do, I think, things top notch in Iowa City, and especially at the U, and that resonates with people. And it shows kind of the level of expectations that you want to bring, and everybody is a part of it. We make everybody feel like they're a part of it. I think that's why you see a lot of people appreciative of being from Iowa, of going to university there, and wanting to come back and give back and make the next generation better.
Do you still stay pretty connected?
Those are some of the things that you see.
Do you
come back?
Do you still stay pretty connected with folks at City High? Do you do stuff over there? I know you have your football camp. Do you run it at City High?
Yeah, I do a little bit. I don't do my football camp much there anymore because the dynamics of camp at my elementary school are a little bit more efficient. You can get on the grass fields faster. We can do a lot more things.
Okay.
City High is kind of like a big place, so it takes too long for the kids I get not angry, but I'm like, why is it taking so long for these kids to get down to the field? Well, it's because it's quarter mile of the field, Sam. It's like, all right, well, in Southeast, it's 2 feet off the field.
Yeah.
Off the building.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do. I mean, obviously Dan Savers is the head football coach. He was the assistant football coach when I was playing, and he's been there since the mid to late 80s. One of my good friends, Joe Wilcox, is the offensive coordinator. John Raffensperger's gone now, but Mike Moore is the head track and field coach. And, I always give back. I'm always giving money back, which brings me back. I'm going over there. Sometimes I go there and get some workouts in. And I'm always paying attention to kind of what's going on. It's a great experience for me to go to Iowa City High School. We had great, athletics. We had great academics. Music was really good. And it's a really good roundabout. And plus, a lot of my family was back there too, which brings me back. But, yeah, it's pretty good place. Great high school to grow up in. And they got a big game this weekend on Friday. They play the new high school in North Liberty called Liberty High, which everybody's high about. But we'll see what's going to happen on Friday. City didn't have a very good year last year, so they're kind of rebuilding a little bit. They got some work to do, but Friday's the first step.
Well, Tim, thank you, sir, for joining the show today. I'll tell you what, I learned a hell of a lot. It's been a long time since I learned that much in an hour-long conversation. I don't think I learned that much in grad school, so that was great. Next time you're out in Colorado, give me a shout, and I'll buy you a beer to say thank you. I appreciate it, Tim.
Absolutely. Got a lot of friends that live in Denver, so I'm out there quite a bit.
Okay.
So I got your mobile. I'll give you a shout. I might be out there in a month or two.
All right, buddy. Sounds good. You have a great day, okay? Good luck mowing the yard.
Hey, yeah, you too.
All right, see ya.